famous celebrities and people who passed away in 1969 in the United States. This is the fourth episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Ella Logan, she was born in March 1913 and she died in May 1969. Her age was 56 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was cancer. Ella Logan was a Scottish-American actress, singer who appeared on Broadway, recorded, and had a nightclub career in the United States and internationally. Logan was a band singer in music halls, and in 1930 she made her recording debut just before her 70th birthday as a vocalist for Jack Hilton Orchestra, recording the song Moaning Low and Can't We Be Friends for HMV Records. She toured Europe before migrating to the United States in the 1930s. Her stage career in the United States began with an appearance in the Broadway musical revue Calling All Stars in 1934. Logan returned to Broadway in 1947, starring as Sharon McLonegan in the original production of Finian's Rainbow, introducing the show's most famous song, How Are Things in Glockamora, Look to the Rainbow, and That Old Devil Moon, among others. The production ran for 725 performances. In May 1956, she appeared on television in London with Louis Armstrong and his All-Stars. In 1965, she was part of the cast of the musical Kelly until her role was cut during out-of-town tryouts. Enid Bennett, she was born in July 1893 and she died in May 1969. Her age was 75 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. Enid Bennett was an Australian silent film actress, mostly active in American film. In the early part of 1915, theater agents J.C. Williamsons decided to make short films of some of their popular plays to forestall the release of imported American film versions. They used Niblo as director, and members of his troupe appeared in Get Rich Quick, Wallingford, and Officer 666. Enid Bennett appeared in both. 3 reels of Officer 666 survive today in the National Film and Sound Archive. Film historians Andrew Pike and Ross Cooper describe it as a crude production, doggedly faithful to the stage. Both films were released in Australia after Bennett left for the United States in June 1915, traveling with Niblo and Cohen. Her first appearance in the United States was in Henry Arthur Jones' play Clock o' the Walk at George M. Cohan's Theatre on Broadway in late 1915. Roles of increasing importance in films followed soon after. Fred Sherman, he was born in May 1905 and he died in May 1969. His age was 64 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Fred Sherman was a character actor known for his work in classic Hollywood films and television, often playing eccentric or humorous supporting roles. After seeing his first stage show, he went to San Francisco and took a character part with an amateur stock company and acted in several touring companies. His television credits included Perry Mason, I Love Lucy, Bonanza, Leave It to Beaver, The Adventures of Superman, and The Andy Griffith Show, on which he appeared in 2 episodes as dry cleaning store owner Fred Goss. He was featured as a beau of Aunt Bee in Wedding Bells of Aunt Bee and in Jailbreak, in which he provided key information to help Andy and Barney capture 2 criminals. His credited film roles included Too Many Women in 1942, Shepherd of the Ozarks in 1942, High Neighbor in 1942, Wrecking Crew, Chain Lightning in 1950, A Lust to Kill in 1958, Alaska Passage in 1959, and many others. William Gould, he was born in May 1886 and he died in May 1969. His age was 83 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. William Gould was a Canadian-American film actor. He appeared in more than 240 films during his career. In films, Gould played Jed Scott, a leader of Holmes traders. In the serial The Lone Ranger Rides Again in 1939 and Air Marshal Craig in serial Buck Rogers in 1939, appeared in a 1950 TV episode of The Lone Ranger entitled Buried Treasure in 1950. He also appeared in The Unknown Ranger in 1936, Mr. Wrong Detective in 1938, The Lone Ranger Rides Again in 1939, Buck Rogers in 1939, Nancy Drew and The Hidden Staircase in 1939, Dr. Christian Meets the Women in 1940. Coleman Hawkins, he was born in November 1904 and he died in May 1969. His age was 64 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was liver disease. Coleman Hawkins was an American jazz tenor, saxophonist, one of the first prominent jazz musicians on his instrument. As Joachim E. Barrett explained, there were some tenor players before him, but the instrument was not an acknowledged jazz horn. Hawkins' biographer John Chilton described the prevalent styles of tenor saxophone solos prior to Hawkins as mooing and rubbery belches. Hawkins denied being first and noted his contemporaries Happy Caldwell, Stump Evans, and Prince Robinson, although he was the first to tailor his method of improvisation to the saxophone rather than imitate the techniques of the clarinet. While Hawkins became known with swing music during the big band era, he had a role in the development of bebop in the 1940s. The origin of Hawkins' nickname, Bean, is not clear. Theories around the nickname's basis include a reference to Hawkins' head shape, his frugality, or due to his immense knowledge of chords. Walter Pitts, he was born in April 1923 and he died in May 1969. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was esophageal varices. Walter Pitts was an American logician who worked in the field of computational neuroscience. He proposed landmark theoretical formulation of neural activity and generative process that influenced diverse fields such as cognitive sciences and psychology, philosophy, neurosciences, computer science, artificial neural networks, cybernetics, and artificial intelligence, together with what has come to be known as generative sciences. He is best remembered for having written, along with Warren Sturgis McCulloch, a seminal paper in scientific history titled A Logical Calculus of Ideas Immanent in Nervous Activity in 1943. This paper proposed the first mathematical model of a neural network. The unit of this model, a sample formalized neuron, is still the standard of reference in the field of neural networks. It is often called a McCulloch-Pitts neuron. Robert Rayford, he was born in February 1953 and he died in May 1969. His age was 16 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was pneumonia. Robert Rayford was an American teenager from Missouri who has been suggested to represent the earliest confirmed case of HIV/AIDS in North America. This is based on evidence published in 1988 in which the authors claimed that medical evidence indicated that he was infected with a virus closely related or identical to human immunodeficiency virus type 1. Rayford died of pneumonia, but his other symptoms baffled the doctors who treated him. A study published in 1988 reported the detection of antibodies against HIV. Result of testing for HIV genetic material were reported at a scientific conference in Australia in 1999. However, the data has never been published in a peer-reviewed medical or scientific journal. Walter Gropius. He was born in May 1883 and he died in July 1969. His age was 86 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Walter was a German-born American architect and founder of the Bauhaus School, who is widely regarded as one of the pioneering masters of modernist architecture. He is a founder of Bauhaus in Weimar and taught there for several years, becoming known as a leading proponent of the international style. Gropius emigrated from Germany to England in 1934 and from England to the United States in 1937, where he spent much of the rest of his life teaching at Harvard Graduate School of Design. In the United States, he worked on several projects with Marcel Breuer and with the firm The Architects Collaborative, of which he was a founding partner. In 1959, he won the AIA Gold Medal, one of the most prestigious awards in architecture. His career was interrupted by the outbreak of the First World War in 1914. He was drafted in August 1914 and served as a sergeant major at the Western Front during the war years, and then as a lieutenant in the Signal Corps. He was awarded the Iron Cross twice after fighting for 4 years. He then, like his father and his great-uncle Martin Gropius, before him became an architect. William Lincoln Bakewell. He was born in November 1888 and he died in May 1969. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. William Bakewell was the only American aboard the Endurance during the 1914 to 1916 Imperial Transatlantic Expedition with Sir Ernest Shackleton. William Bakewell joined the Endurance crew in Argentina along with friend Percy Blackborough. Bakewell was hired on as an able seaman. Bakewell's adventures, including his time on board the Endurance, are documented in his own words in his memoir, The American on the Endurance. From 1914 to 1916, he participated in the Imperial Transatlantic Expedition. In 1923, he returned to Joliet and worked at Elgin, Joliet and Eastern Railway. He next was a towerman for the Rock Island Railroad. He married Merle in 1925 and they had a daughter, Elizabeth Bakewell. During the Second World War, he worked at a diesel-electric plant in LaGrange, Illinois. In August 1945, he bought a farm in Michigan. Frank Gray. He was born in September 1887 and he died in May 1969. His age was 81 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a physicist and researcher at Bell Labs who made numerous innovations in television, both mechanical and electronic, and is remembered for the Gray Code. The Gray Code, or Reflected Binary Code (RBC), appearing in Gray's 1953 patent, is a binary numeral system often used in electronics, but with many applications in mathematics. Gray conducted pioneering research on the development of television. He proposed an early form of flying spot scanner for early television systems in 1927 and helped develop a two-way mechanically scanned television system in 1930 with Pierre Mertz. Gray wrote the classical paper on the mathematics of raster scan systems in 1934. He later participated in the early days of the digital revolution with Raymond W. Sears, William M. Goodall, John Robinson Pierce, and others at Bell Labs by providing the binary code used by Sears in his PCM tube, a beam deflection tube of the type that Sears and Pierce collaborated on, which was used in Goodall's television by pulse code modulation. Jimmy McHugh. He was born in July 1894 and he died in May 1969. His age was 74 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Jimmy McHugh was an American composer, one of the most prolific songwriters from the 1920s to the 1950s. He is credited with over 500 songs. His songs were recorded by many artists. McHugh began his career in his hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, United States, where he published about a dozen songs with local publishers. His first success was the World War I song, "Keep the Love Light Burning in the Window Till the Boys Come Marching Home," and this also came the start of a decade-long collaboration with lyricist Jack Cadigan. After struggling in a variety of jobs, including rehearsal pianist for Boston Opera House and pianist song plugger for Irving Berlin's publishing company in 1921, at the age of 26, McHugh relocated to the New York City, eventually finding employment as a professional manager with the music publisher Jack Mills Incorporation. It was there that McHugh published his first real hit, Emmeline, and briefly teamed up with Irving Mills as the Hosty Toasty Boys to write the hit song "Everything is Hosty Toasty Now." Henry Rago. He was born in September 1915 and he died in May 1969. His age was 53 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Henry Rago was a poet and editor who led Poetry magazine, influencing modern American poetry by publishing works from leading poets of the 20th century. Rago was editor of Poetry magazine for 14 years, from 1955 to 1969. He was also a professor of theology and literature at the University of Chicago, jointly in the Divinity School and in the new Collegiate Division. His seminars and research explored the relations between poetry and religion, among other interdisciplinary concerns. He was co-chairman of the program in the History and Philosophy of Religion in New Collegiate Division. His poems were widely published in magazines and newspapers during his lifetime, beginning at the age 16 in Poetry magazine. His book of poems, A Sky of Late Summer, was published by Macmillan in 1963. He has recorded poems for the archives of the Library of Congress and for the Lamont Library at Harvard. Among the many places throughout the world he lectured on literature and philosophy and read his poems. Alex Rackley. He was born in June 1949 and he died in May 1969. His age was 19 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was murder. Alex Rackley was an American activist who was a member of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. In the late 1960s, in May 1969, Rackley was suspected by other Panthers of being police informant. He was brought to Panther headquarters in New Haven, Connecticut, held captive and tortured there for several days, condemned to death, taken to the wetlands of Middlefield, Connecticut, and murdered there. His killing was the crime at the center of the 1970 New Haven Black Panther trials. In 1968, Rackley left his home state of Florida and moved to the New York City. There he became involved with the Black Panther Party, but his role was limited to giving classes in martial arts. In the spring of 1969, Rackley came under suspicion. His loyalty was questioned, and rumors circulated that he was passing information about the Panthers to the FBI. The situation was exacerbated by the presence of two National Panther figures from the California headquarters, Field Marshals George W. Sam Jr. and Landon Williams. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.